Hello and welcome to the Avrum Rosensweig Show.
Welcome to one of the internet's best podcasts, where we dive deep into the lives of the extraordinary and fascinating people who leave an indelible mark on our world. Join us as we explore their captivating stories, remarkable achievements, and unique perspectives that shape history and inspire generations. Get ready to embark on a journey through the lives of inspiring people unlike any other.
Hello, folks, and welcome to the Avrum Rosensweig Show. The series that you are tuning into is called Parsha Prose, and it's a wonderful, wonderful series that I've been doing for a number of months with my dear friend Rabbi Shlomo Gemara, essentially studying and teaching the Parsha HaShavua, the Torah portion of the week, in the guise of or through the lens of classic literature. So, firstly, welcome, Rabbi Shlomo Gemara. How are you?
Thank you very much. How are you, Avrum?
I'm doing well. I understand that you're a little bit under the weather, and I appreciate you being here today. Thank you.
I don't give up on Parsha Prose so quickly.
You're a good man. You're a good man. One has to be tenacious in this world, right?
Absolutely.
Like Yitro.
One of the lessons from Parsha Yitro, we can learn from good examples and not so good examples. We will talk about it later. Are you excited about the coming Parsha, the Aseret Dibrot and everything?
Yeah, you know what? It's interesting, Rabbi, that I've come to a point that when I learn the Parsha, I get really excited about it, almost in a visceral way, because I'm able to, and this is a lot because of your instructions as to how to learn. I'm able to make the application between the Parsha and what occurs within it to our lives today. As a really simple example, in the Parsha, we study the relationship between Moshe Rabbeinu and his choten and his father-in-law Yitro. And the words that are used within that context is re'ehu. Moshe Rabbeinu went out and he bowed down and he kissed him as two friends would. And I was thinking before we came to air, and I want to ask you this question. I remember my father, God bless his soul, Zacharenu Livracha, when his brothers, either Beryl or David, would come out to Kitchener, where we lived. It was a small city of 200 families. My father was the rabbi there, my mother the rebbitzin, and they did a magnificent job of growing it and being makar of many, many, many Jews to this day who are from and living throughout the world and really, really adhering to a beautiful Jewish way. But I remember when his brothers would come out, Rabbi, and that he would change. He would sort of drop that rabbinical veneer, if you will, and a smile would come to his face, and he seemed like, here I am with my brothers, my buddies, my friends, and he just seemed so relaxed. And when I thought of Moshe Rabbeinu and Yitro, I saw that relationship too. Because you're a rabbi, you have to really be rabbinical, right? But are there people in your life like the Yitros of the world who, when you're with them, it's like two buddies together?
I have to tell you, that's one of the reasons that I never wanted actually to be a pulpit rabbi.
Yeah.
I felt and still feel that it raised a barrier between you and people. And I like people. I don't want to present myself just as a rabbi. I really want to be a friend of everyone, and I like to learn from everyone. I think this is one of the reasons that I was, I think, quite successful in my career, because I never raised this bar of being a rabbi. Now, it's not good. A rabbi has to be a kind of authority to the people. And therefore, at a very young age, I understood that I will not be a good pulpit rabbi because I will have to pretend for something that I'm not.
Was that a struggle as a Rosh Yeshiva?
Rosh Yeshiva of Yeshiva High School is slightly different. And listen, actually, at the Rosh Yeshiva, you have lots of interaction with your students.
Yeah.
It's very different from being a rabbi. A rabbi really has to be an authority. He has to be the king of the community. And some people are very good at it, and some people are not. And therefore, some of the most hilarious, painful, tragic stories about rabbis and their communities, because you have to have a style, and every community has a different style of leadership. Um, but one thing is for sure, you have to be comfortable with being authority, um, and it will put some heavy weight on your shoulders. Um, I like more the interaction, the being a person who uses not his authority but experience, um, sometimes the wisdom that Hashem gave me, and to share it with other people.
Yeah.
And from the up high position of a rabbi, I found it a little bit harder, but I have full admiration to the people who are great rabbis and use their authority to lead their communities. And they brought them, as you spoke about your father so beautifully, um, got to a great achievement in terms of leadership and bringing up their communities. I admire these people.
You know, Rabbi, throughout the week, as I prepare for this show, you know, dribs and drabs here, and I will come across something that I think is appropriate for our discussion, and I'll, you know, write it. And I sometimes come across figures that are reflective of your character. As I've done this morning, I have a chavruta with my dear friend Motel Reutman. We learn every Monday night. We're now studying halacha. It's a new thing for me. I mentioned, I think last week or 2 weeks ago, I always try to stay away from it because I don't keep halacha. And I figured, okay, it's best not to know. But now I'm diving into it, and we'll see where that takes me. Anyways, within our discussion last night, Rabbi, and I'm so excited to tell you this, we talked about the Chida. Chaim Yosef David Azulai ben Yitzchak Zerachia from 1724 to 1806. Now, I want to tell you something about him because it's very, very much like you. He was a Jerusalem-born rabbinical scholar, a noted bibliophile. He had a tremendous collection of books, and pioneer in the publication of Jewish religious writings. Now, the thing about him was that he would go off on these extended fundraising missions for the Jewish community of Hebron. Okay? And his journey spanned 1753 to 1757. He crossed Italy, country you love, German lands, reaching Western Europe and London. On a second trip between 1772 and 1778, he went through Tunisia, once again, Italy, France, and Holland. Now, listen to this, and this is the kicker here. He authored a detailed travel log recounting his 2 journeys to Europe. The travelogue documented Azulai's encounter with various communities, rare books, and manuscripts, and the challenges of overseas travel, including storms, pirates, customs officials, and occasional hostility from non-Jewish innkeepers. Now, similarly, he talked about places that he went to visit, including the Leaning Tower of Pisa, the Beauvais Gardens of Florence, the Palace of Versailles, and the Tower of London. He also climbed the Campanile in Venice for a panoramic view of the city and explored destinations like the New Promenade in Niza, an ancient temple in southern France, and the Natural Science Museum in Amsterdam. And I thought about you. I thought about you being in Rome with your wife, this beautiful rabbinical beard that you have. You look from, you know, you're a rabbi and you look rabbinical. And there you are in Rome, you know, taking in the beauty, your wanderlust is being actualized. And I thought of the two of you together, you know.
Okay, number one, I was in all these places.
Yeah.
The Chida is one of my heroes. I think we should have like a podcast about him because he was an extremely interesting and colorful Torah scholar of, like, you have to understand, we are talking here about the highest calibers of Torah learning, but at the same time, a person was curious about the world around him. I'll give you one example. And I'm sorry because I did not prepare for this discussion, but you mentioned the Chida. And you know, when he came down from the ship, he had like 8 big boxes, wooden boxes. 7 of them were his clothing. He was the person that came to every event with a different clothes. He knew how to dress himself. And you might say, well, it's a rabbi. Like, why should he need
Yeah.
more? Like, I have 2 coats. That's enough, you know? No, he was very particular about things. The end of his life also, he suffered apparently from depression, and he actually wrote about it very candidly. And but he was like beyond description. I want to tell you something that maybe you didn't know. Until this very day, there are shuls in Europe where he visited, which are very different from all other shuls. You know, the minhag in Chutz La'aretz, not in Eretz Israel, is that Kohanim are going only on Musaf of the holidays, right? The Pesach, Sukkot, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, but not on Shabbat, not on regular days. When the Chida came to Italy and later to Germany, in France, he was like, "Ma pitom." It's a mitzvah deoraita for a Kohen every day. He himself was a Kohen, and Mother Tarich Liot, like, why Kohanim are not going? And he instituted that in the shul that he davened in, they will say Birkat Kohanim every day. And it continues until this very day. We are talking about something around 300 years or so. So he still have influence on some communities all over the world.
But his wanderlust was fascinating, and the readings that I did about him stated that those individuals who would go on these lengthy trips to collect money as fundraisers, I think the statistic was that 1 out of 10 would not come back. They would be killed. It was a very, very perilous trip that they made.
I can tell you a few stories about this one
Tell us.
if we have time.
Yeah, tell us.
And one story is a story that I tell my students in the first Talmud class every single year. Listen to the following story. There was a person in the time that there was a terrible famine in Jerusalem. Like, families did not have food to provide. You know, we saw the terrible pictures of the people who came from Gaza. Like, they dropped 30 kilograms, 40 kilograms. The entire community in Yerushalayim in the time of the Ottomans, I'm talking about like 150 years ago, were in a terrible famine. And people had to leave sometimes their family in order to make some money. And the guy went to Turkey, one of the young people in Jerusalem. He had a family in Turkey, and he wanted to make some money and to bring it to Jerusalem back to sustain his family. And from time to time, he sent them, like, you know, a coin of gold or something like this. He did very, very well, to the point where his uncle appointed him to be the kind of CEO, or the person who ran his textile factory in Turkey. And unfortunately, when he was quite young, he felt that his days are numbered. He became very sick. And his main concern was, how do I get the money to my family in Jerusalem? It's not like today, you wire it, you have PayPal, you have all kinds of services. You had to take a person with a treasure, which is today maybe a few $1 million, and to cross the sea, and to go in ways that robbers were waiting for you. So he hired a very trusted person, and he asked him that after he passed away, he's going to bring the money to his wife and children who stayed behind in Jerusalem. And of course, the trusted person said, of course, I would be honored to do it. And the poor guy, who was just about to die, wrote on a document with signatures, with witnesses, that for doing this job, which was dangerous and very needed lots of responsibility, he wrote in the document, when you come to Yerushalayim, I don't know how much you deserve for something like this. Maybe you will have to hire people to guard it, and you know, to rent a special wagon to bring it to Jerusalem. But whatever it is, please give the money to my wife, and give her as much as you want. And namely, and the rest, take to yourself, for this will be the payment. He did not want to say, you know, so and so money, because he didn't know what it's going to take. So the document said, give my wife as much as you want. The guy took the money. It was a huge treasure. And, he decided that he will take 10 ducats, 10 golden coins, and all the rest, of course, he will give to the wife. One day on the sea, he does not feel well, and he thinks to himself, you know what, 10 coins for something like this is too little. I'm going to take to myself 100. The second day, he said, well, 100 is not enough. He could not trust anybody else but me. I will take to myself 1,000. And every hour on the sea, you can imagine what happened. And when he came to Jerusalem, sof, the wife was very excited. I mean, she was broken for being a widow, but she knew about it. But at least now the money is going to save the family. And he handed her 10 coins of gold. She said, 10 coins of gold? What are you talking about? My husband had 100,000 of them. Why you give me only 10? He said, my lady, I have a document here that I can give my, the person wrote that I can give you as much as I want. This is how much I want to give you, 10 coins. And the lady was screaming, you steal my father's money, busha, it's a terrible thing. And the guy said, I have a document. And they go to all the rabbis of Yerushalayim, and the rabbis of Yerushalayim say the document is a document. The husband was, maybe a very decent person, but he was a little bit, ignorant. He didn't know how to write a document. And he messed up the whole legal situation. And they couldn't find the solution for this lady. Before the final verdict, they sent the case to Rabbi Chizkiah Medini. He was the rabbi of Hebron. He passed away, I believe, in the age of 105. By the way, it ties us to Herman Wouk that we are going to discuss later, who also died, I think, 104, 105, something like this. And he looked at the document. He said, big trouble. And he tried to convince the husband, and not the husband, the guy who carried the money. And he said, maybe you should be more a mensch. What about this one? And he refused. It was he won the lottery. The person, people sometimes over money, they change their personality, or you can see the real personality when it comes to issues of money. And he said, no, b'shum panim v'ofen, I don't agree to it. So he said, so how much you want to give her? So so he said, I want to give her only 10 coins, and the rest is going to be mine. So the rabbi said, you have here 100,000 coins. So you give now the widow 990 coins, and you take to yourself 10. He said, no, Rabbi, the document said completely the opposite. He said, no, you didn't read it properly. The document said, give her as much as you want.
Oh, yeah, right.
You want 990. That's what you will have to give her. That's what the document says. The husband was not silly at all. He was actually afraid that a person with a greed like you might want everything to himself. So this was a verdict. He gave her all the money and took for himself only the 10 coins of gold. So I always tell my students, you see,
it's a beautiful story.
It's an amazing story that tells you that reading is everything. When you have a text and you are sure that it says A, you should read it again and again, because that's exactly the beauty of the Gemara. The Gemara teaches you how to read and to read carefully.
That's a beautiful story. Wonderful. But by the way, when you were telling the story, what it reminded me of when my father passed away, and my mother was left a widow. And there's a sort of a widow state where, regardless of how much money is in the will or left over for the wife, she often feels as though she has no money whatsoever. It's not unusual, So I felt for the woman in this story, despite the fact that there was money there. There is a sense, and it's often because the husband may not include the wife in the financials of the family, and therefore she feels, oh, I'm broke, I have no money. And I remember my father, thank God, left my mother some money through an insurance policy and so on, but she was convinced in the beginning anyways that she had no money. And that's a very, very tenuous and a very sad place for widows to be. So that's what came to mind. Yeah,
Yeah. You enjoyed the story. That's the important thing, and I hope our listeners too. And as I said, I
I love it.
tell this story to my students. The first Talmud class, I said, what we are going to do is to try to read text like Rav Chizkiah Medini, to see something beyond what you think the text is telling you.
Excellent. Hence the idea that within Judaism, when you study Talmud, you have to go over it one more time, and then you have to go over it another time and another time and 100 times, so that you'll understand the clear and the depths of the meaning of the Talmud, right?
Yep.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, the series is called Parsha and Prose. In the beginning, the rabbi and I just like to schmooze about life, and we call that Shivim Panim. We are going to dive into the Parsha in a moment. Before we do, Rabbi, I have to ask you this question. Within the Parsha, Yitro comes and meets Moshe Rabbeinu with Moshe's wife and his two sons, Gershon and Eliezer. And the Torah describes or defines why Moshe Rabbeinu and his wife named the two boys those particular names. It's a very, very beautiful piece. And I was wondering when I was learning this, is Baruch Hashem, thank God you have 8 children. I have a son. And I was wondering that when you named your children, maybe you can give us one example. What did you look for? What was the sort of the machinations and the journey that you went on with your wife in order to determine your children's names?
It was clear to us that all the names has to be from the Tanakh. No questions about this one. Baruch Hashem, both our parents were alive, so there was no need to name anybody after Saba and Savta that were alive. My in-laws passed away over the last year. My parents, Shibatu Lechaim Arukim, are still alive. My father actually, this Tu Bishvat, 2 days from now, is going to celebrate his 95 years old birthday, which is amazing, and Baruch Hashem in good health. So we wanted to take something a little bit more modern, but still connected to the Tanakh. So we gave names like Netanel, which is like a name appears in the Tanakh with a very clear connotation to Natan El. It was like a gift from God. Efrat, which is a name in the Tanakh, is some people say that Miriam, her name was also Efrat. And Yair, everyone was somehow after a figure in the Tanakh, including Eliashiv, who is mentioned in the book of Ezra. I think the only one not mentioned is my daughter Emuna, who lives today in Modi'in, but Emuna is like the foundation for the entire Tanakh, right? So, although I don't think that there is a name of Emunah in the Tanakh, but the concept of Emunah is from Bereshit to the end, to Divrei Hayamim.
They say that people represent the meaning of their names. And I'm assuming that if I were to ask you, did your children grow into their names, you would say yes. But instead, I'm going to ask you, are you Take? Are you a Shlomo? Are you a Shlomo?
I wish. I wish that I would be not as smart as Shlomo HaMelech, because no one will be able to be smart from Shlomo HaMelech, but Shlomo comes from a word of Shlemut, and I'm everything like opposite of this, like, I maybe strive to be more complete, but But no, I'm very proud to bear the name of my grandfather that I never knew, but I told you that I owe my life to him because he's the father of my mother, and the decision of my grandfather and grandmother to leave my mother at the age of 5 or 6 years old in Belgium before they departed to Auschwitz gave me my life. So I'm very proud to bear his name, and I hope he will never be ashamed of me and embarrassed with what I'm doing. Um, yeah, and
I would tell you, by the way, as a friend and a colleague, I would tell you that on the face of it, I see you as a very complete man. I really do. You're very inspirational. Really.
thank you
Yeah.
very much.
You're
But
welcome. Now, a few weeks ago, we talked about potential sponsorship and advertising for the show, and I made a commitment at that time that we would develop sort of an advertising plan here and some more technologically advanced documentation to show to you. Now, indeed, we've done that. It's not ready to go to air yet, but I'm excited about it because really what it does is it reflects a certain sophistication of our show here, I think. We're developing it nicely, and we'll be showing that to you in the coming weeks. But suffice it to say that there are opportunities for you to be part of the vibe here. And it's a very, very special vibe. It's not only a spiritual one, but it's a collegial one and it's a familial one in its own way. And to sponsor the show like this means that you are sort of part of a journey, part of a trek, and we would encourage you strongly to consider being an advertiser, being a sponsor, and again, we will show you opportunities more so, God willing, in the coming weeks. Rabbi, you want to add to that? You're always great at this.
I would love to add to it. Yesterday, I mean, on Sunday, I was in an engagement party and I met some of my friends, old friends, people that I learned with. And someone told me about the Agnon class, and they said, we have like this podcast, and I think your father might enjoy it. He said, I never knew that you have a podcast, and I showed him the link. I sent him the link, and he called me afterwards, and he was excited about it. He said, wow, like my father is listening to episode after episode. And let me tell you, if you are not at the point of sponsor it, there is something very simple you can do. You see this clicker, you just click like here, and it ensures that more people are going to be exposed to it. And this is also kind of sponsorship. So if you reach this point at the episode, which is 27 minutes into the episode, do a click. This will help us to spread our word, and more people will be exposed to it. Thank
Nice
you.
one. Do a click. I like that. All right, here we go, folks. Parsha and Prose. I would like to take this opportunity to dedicate the hostages who have come home, in particular, or Levy, who I interviewed his brother, Michael Levy, and they came home. He came home the other day with two other hostages, very emaciated, very thin, and what people kept saying was that they were reflective of those who came out of the concentration camps. I contacted Michael, and I also spoke with, by the way, Yair Moses, whose father Gadi came out, and you can't imagine the love that they're feeling and this just immense appreciation for the return of their family members. Yair told me that his father is doing much better than they had thought, and we are hoping the same for Or Levy and for all the other hostages. And Am Yisrael Chai.
Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Parsha this week is Parsha Yitro, and I want to just tell you a little bit about it, and then we will dive into the Caine Mutiny and sort of a description of it as well. The Torah portion of Yitro, found in Exodus 18:1 to 20:23, it's one of the most significant chapters in the Hebrew Bible, marking a pivotal moment in the Israelites' journey from slavery to nationhood. Named after Yitro, the father-in-law of Moses, this portion opens with a visit from Yitro, who comes to reunite with Moses and bring him his wife and his two sons. The encounter between Moses and his father-in-law becomes a turning point as Yitro offers wise counsel to Moses advising him to delegate leadership responsibilities to others in order to avoid burnout. The portion also contains the dramatic and sacred events of the revelations at Sinai, where the Israelites received the Ten Commandments. This awe-inspiring scene is filled with thunder, with lightning, and the sounds of the shofar as the people prepare to hear directly from God. The moment signifies not only a covenant between God and the Jewish people, but also the birth of the nations. Their morals, their spiritual framework, a foundation that continues to influence religious and ethical thought to this day. Yitro is a deeply significant portion that touches on themes of leadership, community, divine revelation, and the establishment of laws that guide and shape the lives of the Jewish people. It's a reminder of the responsibility of leadership, the importance of wisdom and decision-making, and the everlasting connection between the divine and humanity. Caine Mutiny. The Caine Mutiny is a gripping and thought-provoking novel written by Herman Wouk, and it was first published in 1951. It's set during World War II. The story follows the crew of the USS Caine, a fictional minesweeper in the Pacific theater. The novel explores themes of duty, morality, and the human condition through the lens of a naval mutiny, one of the most serious offenses in military history. The plot centers on Lieutenant Commander Queeg, the mentally unstable captain of the Caine, whose erratic leadership style and growing paranoia put the crew's safety and morale at risk. Their protagonist, Ensign Keith, and his fellow officers struggle to balance their loyalty to the chain of command with their growing concern about Queeg's competence and his mental state. As the tension reaches a boiling point, a mutiny ensues, with the officers seeking to take control of the ship in order to prevent further harm. Wook's novel is not only a suspenseful tale of military conflict, but it's also a very deep exploration of leadership responsibility and the complex nature of human judgment. The Caine Mutiny poses tough questions about loyalty, about authority, and the line between self-preservation and duty, offering readers a powerful reflection on the ethical dilemmas faced in the times of war. The book's timeless theme and vivid characters have made it a classic, and it was later adapted into an acclaimed film in 1954. Rabbi, what brought these two pieces together?
I was looking for a book, and it was not easy because you have so many topics in this parsha. But I think about Moshe Rabbeinu as the person who takes a nation to the desert. And we don't think about it many times because you call Moshe Rabbeinu, and you get the impression that the most important part of Moshe Rabbeinu was giving us the Torah, teaching us the Torah. And sometimes we forget that he also had to lead about 2, maybe 3 million, maybe more people in a desert, like the SS Caine, isolated, away from a city, away from sources, susceptible to storms and harsh conditions. And he was the captain of this journey. And many of the things that are described, the challenges, how you function under stress, I find in the story of the stories of the Torah that Moshe Rabbeinu actually faced quite same experiences. People who saw him as incompetent, people who saw him as the person who ran his show and not the people's show. And his leadership style, on one hand, he represents the word of God, which is the ultimate word. And at the same time, he has to deliver it to the people in a way that they are going to listen. So I was always fascinated with this book. From the moment I read it in Hebrew, Amered al Caine. But I think since I read this book, I started to see Moshe Rabbeinu in different light. The leader who has to take his people on a boat, so to speak, to unknown territory. People sometimes mistrusted him. He was almost to be replaced, like the captain here. So that drew my parallel and my attention to the two people and the difference between them, the difference between the leadership styles.
Rabbi, would you say that Moshe Rabbeinu had training for his leadership?
That's a big question. The Torah does not describe any. But if you think about his childhood, he grew up in the palace of Paro. I'm sure, and Moshe Rabbeinu was a highly intelligent person, no questions about it, with intellectual capacity, with emotional capacity. The Torah present him in the first chapters of Shemot. I am sure, no questions about it, that he looks around and learned a lot about how to run, hierarchy, how to run consultants, the court, and many other things. Remember that the Ibn Ezra says something which is quite fascinating. He asked why Moshe Rabbeinu had to go through this story of growing up in the house of Paro, and he said two answers actually to this question. Number one, if he grew among the Jews, they will not accept him. It's very hard to accept a person that you know from childhood and to accept him as your leader. Number one, that's a phenomenon that exists everywhere. Well, I remember him when he was a child, like he was nothing, and this is number one. But number two, leadership is something that you have to train to. We have here in chat like a student council. And let me tell you, from grade 9 to grade 12, it's a long course where you train people how to be leaders. And hopefully we hope that they are going to be the next layer of leaders in the Jewish community. But it takes training. It takes training if it's Shabbaton, if it's like, some journey that they do together, lots of discussions, learning about challenges of leadership, how to solve issues. And there was no better place, I believe, than the palace of Paro. He learned a lot about diplomacy and a lot about how to handle crises. No questions about this one. This is number one. Now, listen, there is a gap that the Torah tells us nothing about. Moshe Rabbeinu most likely left the palace of Paro or ran away from the palace of Paro in the age, let's say, between 18 to 25. He was young at the time. And he had to leave because he stood up for one of his brothers and killed the person who oppressed him brutally. He appears back on stage when he's 80 years old. What happened in between? We have 60 years that we know nothing about Moshe Rabbeinu. You know who comes to fill up the gap usually in cases like this, right? It's a midrash. We have all kinds of stories that he was the king of Cush. He was a general here and general there. Now, I am not sure if they had a tradition about it as much as they assume, learning about the capabilities of Moshe the leader, that he must serve as a leader elsewhere. And that's the source, I believe, to the midrash that he was a general and king in Cush, which is not far away from Egypt. Was it true or not? We don't have evidence. We don't have any archaeology that support it. But our Chachamim understood that you cannot lead 2 or 3 million people under harsh conditions if you are not a super duper leader. And Moshe Rabbeinu was so, and you cannot be a super leader if you were not trained for this.
What comes to mind is that I started up an organization in 1997 called the Ahavta. It was a Canadian Jewish humanitarian organization. And by the time I left in 2015 or 16, we had a 25 or 30 staff. And I had very little training as a leader. In some ways, I thought I was very good. In some ways, I was not very good at all. But just in light of what you're saying is I grew up in a rabbinical home. My father was a rabbi, and just by osmosis alone, watching how one conducts themselves in very challenging times, when someone passes away, when there's anti-Semitism at your doorstep, of which there was, I think inevitably, if you're open to it, you pick up on your father's, your mother's leadership qualities, and indeed, I think that's what happened in my case. Rabbi, in the Caine Mutiny, Captain Queeg's leadership is questioned due to his instability. While in Parsha Yitro, Moses is advised by his father-in-law to delegate leadership to others. How do these two scenarios highlight the importance of strong and balanced leadership?
That's exactly why I brought the book next to Parsha Yitro. The challenge for a leader is to use his authority and to make it unquestionable. And it's very tempting, especially young people. I see sometimes teachers in the classroom, first year, second year, they want to make sure that the students recognize their authority. And they come with very rigid rules. And if a student just cross the line, they will react or overreact in a very serious way. And I guess that in any leadership, you somehow a little bit insecure. Are people going to respect your authority or not? And different people react differently to a situation like this. Different leaders react differently. You have the dictator, like the captain here. You have the person who listens. And think about Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu carried all the weight until now and actually proved himself to be a good leader. He took them out of Mitzrayim. He negotiated with Paro. He crossed the sea with Bnei Israel. He already went few days in the desert managing to provide them with water and food. And here comes a stranger. Okay, he was his father-in-law. That's very nice. But, this is like now he's on a different capacity, the leader of millions of people. And the stranger start to give him all kind of ideas. I think that many of us, upon hearing these ideas, will say, "Sheb b'sheket, don't teach the chicken how to lay eggs. I know my job, and God gave me a certain job." And I think that this will be like a normal reaction. I wouldn't be surprised if this would be the reaction. What Moshe Rabbeinu is doing, he listens carefully. And he had a very good reason, by the way, to develop his system, which was standing there from morning to night. It was not out of balagan, but he knew that at least for the beginning, if you want to teach people how to behave, if you want to judge people, you have to be there. You have to be there and you have to show them how to deal between people. You cannot leave it to other people. You have to be the role model. But Yitro comes to him and he said, "This is not going to work. As you said, it's very nice to be the leader who takes care of everything, but real leadership is to listen to others, to delegate your power to others." And Yitro told him, if you want to be really successful, you have to delegate some of your power to others. And the most amazing thing is that Moshe Rabbeinu listens and execute this advice with no delays. And I believe that maybe allowed for like a journey of 40 years. Think about all the challenges, all the questions raised against Moshe Rabbeinu over the years. This advice of sharing responsibility, of giving other people to lead and to, to be the local leaders of the tribes, of the families, proved itself to work fantastically. And it was because Moshe Rabbeinu listened to advice. Listened to advice.
The in Jethro's counsel or Yitro's counsel to Moshe about delegating responsibility to other leaders, it's crucial in the Parsha. In the Caine Mutiny, the officers' decision to act on their own when they feel Queeg is failing in his duties also relates to delegation. How do both works explore the consequence of delegating authority?
Queeg is a person who does not delegate any authority, but it comes not from a philosophy, it comes from insecurity, obviously, and some psychological issue that it was exposed later in the court by our brother Greenwald, the excellent lawyer. Listen, the problem was that sometimes you need a person to tell the leader that there are issues. The question is how you do it and what is the fine line between mutiny and rebellion and authority. It's not so easy. It's not so simple. Where do you cross the line? And the whole court is about very this point. Like, where are you allowed to cross the line? And remember that we have these people also in the story of Moshe Rabbeinu. Who are the Tan Ba'aviram? They are the people who believe that Moshe Rabbeinu is incompetent. He cannot lead the people out of Mitzrayim. They saw that he was wrong with the diplomacy with Paro, which at a certain point made the life of Bnei Israel even harder than before. They thought that he take to himself power that does not belong to him, and they joined Korach and the whole story, which quite amazed me, Avrum, that we already did this parshiot. Wow, I just realized that we already have maybe two dozens of parshiot, maybe even more, which is very nice.
Yes.
So this story is about leadership under questioning, under challenges, is the story of the Torah too. And I always thought, listen, if I would be the author and I want to make Moshe Rabbeinu greater, I would drop all the stories of the challenges of Datan Vaviram. Why is it important? The important thing is that Moshe Rabbeinu took them out of Mitzrayim, brought them to Eretz Israel. Why to tell about all the troubles in the way? I think that Torah is telling us that leadership will be questioned, and you have to develop a leadership that is going to be accepted, and sometimes you will have very difficult people who will challenge you. And the Torah does not want to make Moshe Rabbeinu above criticism and above questioning. Sometimes we do have to question our leaders and to ask very hard questions.
I guess one has to ask, in terms of Moshe Rabbeinu's leadership, he was walking hand in hand with God. And it seems to me that God was there to protect him as a leader. Yet the flip side to that was Yitro comes into the scenario, a human being, his father-in-law, an important man. And he instructs Moshe Rabbeinu how to set up courts in a way that would prevent, as we said before, Moshe Rabbeinu's burnout. So Moshe Rabbeinu was unique in terms of leadership, Rabbi. He had, on one hand, he had God with him. And how much more could any leader ask for? But then on the other hand, he had to be open to the advice of a human being. Very, very interesting juxtaposition.
I think that's exactly the nature of leadership in Am Israel in general. Even the kings, if you talk about King Saul and King David and King Solomon and all the people who came after them. And I think we highlighted this principle already a few times. Yes, God involved in our life. Yes, God had a plan for all of us, and especially for the Jewish people. No questions about it. But at the end of the day, it's the leadership, it's the people who have to work it in this world. God will not appear and will say, hey, this is a mistake. Hey, I don't like this. I don't like that. He gave us kind of, a shamayim shamayim la Hashem. The sky, the heaven is to God. The haaretz natan livnei adam. Here on earth, we have to act. It's our responsibility. And therefore, in the entire Torah and in the entire Tanakh, you have these stories of, on one hand, it's the hand of God behind the scenes. At the same time, it's us who are making the decision. It's us who are acting. So take the story of Joseph in Egypt, for example. We discussed it a few times. On one hand, God had a plan. He told Avram Avinu years before Joseph was born that the Jewish people are going to be oppressed by a nation and he's going to take them out. Then it materialized through the story of Joseph and his brothers. Now, does that mean that the brother did nothing wrong because everything was planned? And by the way, Joseph himself tell them, oh, it was like a plan of God. Does that take any of the responsibility? The answer is no. There is a plan, there is a destination, but you can lead there with wonderful acts of kindness, the right decisions, and this is your responsibility as a human being,
Mm-hmm.
or God can get the same destination. Like they had to go to a nation like Egypt to be oppressed there, but you can get there in a very wrong way, with causing pain to your father for more than 20 years, to your brother that was almost killed, by hiding what happened and changing the dynamics inside the family. So yes, there was a hand of God behind the scene, but what happened in reality is our decision, and we have to take full responsibility for it. And the same is happening with Moshe and Aaron. Of course, God will with them. But listen, it could end up in a very bad way. Our, sages are telling us that there was another leader. We read about him in the last week's parsha about Hur. He was a leader. He came from the tribe of Judah that was supposed to be later the kings and the leaders. And he appears once in the Torah, and that's it. He's gone. The next time we read about him is in Har Sinai, and we don't hear about him anymore. What happened to him? Our sages say that he was killed. He was murdered by the people. He tried to stop the people from doing the egel, the golden calf, and the people killed him. They were outrageous. They had no leader, and they decided to kill who tried to take some responsibility and leadership. Where God was at this time? The answer is that we have the free will to do things, and that they can be terrible things. So it's a very fine issue. Like, okay, there is involvement of God, but as I said, I think it's like between the point A of Z, but in the middle, it's us who are acting and doing things, and we have to do it right.
When you take a look at modern Jewish history and the leadership within Israel itself, the Yitzhak Shamirs, the Menachem Begins, and currently Netanyahu, do you get a sense that they invoke God, that they call upon God, or there's a godliness about their leadership? Do you have that sense whatsoever?
It's a very good question. I'll tell you what we do in shuls, and I think it's very, very important. Um, what we ask God, Ushlach orcha ve'amitcha lerashia sarea ve'yoatzea, which is translated, please send your light and your truth to our leaders.
Mm-hmm.
The Gemara says in one place that if God wants to punish a community, it starts like this. If God wants to punish a herd of animals, he will give them a blind leader, a blind goat to lead them. Now, obviously, it's a parable to human beings. The, the worst punishment to any community, to a nation, is to have blind leaders. And we ask God to open their eyes, their mind, and their heart. So if they feel this way or not, I'm not sure. But as I say, God have a plan. God have a plan. It will be executed. It's better that our leaders will do it right, in the right way, and God will not have to work in mysterious and very tragic ways to get us there.
Rabbi, within this parsha, we talk about the Jews at Mount Sinai, and it's just a beautiful, thought-provoking, compelling moment within the Torah as to how God prepares the mountain, and eventually what happens is that the mountain in itself is shaking. How Moshe Rabbeinu prepares the Jewish people. There's actually something I kind of define as being quite funny, actually, when God instructs Moshe Rabbeinu, make sure that the Jewish people, make sure that the animals do not come close to Mount Sinai, because if they do, it'll die. It's just way too spiritually hot. And Moshe Rabbeinu goes and he visits God, and God says to him, Moshe Rabbeinu, go back down and tell the Jewish people to stay away, keep their distance from Sinai. And Moshe's response it's a very interesting response. He goes, God, it's okay. It's okay. I've done that already. God says, go back down. So Moshe Rabbeinu goes back down. I find that sometimes the interaction between Moshe Rabbeinu and God is almost quirky. It's almost like a reflection of Re'ehu, like two friends, if you will, kiviyachol, as they say. And that sort of dialogue between them was truly a reflection of God, the mentor, God overseeing the Jewish people, and Moshe Rabbeinu, the leader, the greatest leader ever, the greatest prophet ever. Never his eyes, never dimmed, right? But God was saying, hey, Kindle, go back down. Tell them again. I just found that kind of quirky and humorous. Did that play out in that way to you?
You know what? Honestly, like I never thought about it, but I can tell you from my own experience, this is so true. Because sometimes we believe, oh, okay, we instructed the students, we instructed people to do so and so and so and so, and we think that's enough. And just to learn afterwards that your words are just empty. Like people maybe listen to what you say, but they did not take it to their heart. And Hashem knew apparently the human nature. Not everyone is Moshe Rabbeinu that you tell him A and he does A. Some people are saying, oh, yeah, especially in Israel, they say, oh, a command is a recommendation, not more than that. And unfortunately, sometimes in Tzahal, you see that commands are not fully obeyed. And causing lots of troubles. There are people who say that lots of people are suffering today because the certain orders were not kept properly. I don't know if it's true or not, but from my own experience in the army, it might be very, very true. And Hashem said, I know the human being's nature. You tell them once, and they are not 100% going to fulfill it because it's going to be such a magnificent event that people would like to come a little bit closer, to take the first seat. And Hashem tell him, go again and tell them this is serious. It was not recommendation. It's an order that might cost your life.
Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying. It's a good point. My reference to that was very similar to the dialogue between HaKadosh Baruch Hu, God, and Sarah. You laugh. Oh, no, I didn't laugh. Yeah. You laugh. There's a quirkiness to it. It's very, very, they say in Hebrew, kiviyachol, as if it could be. There's a humanness, and we have that within our own families and amongst ourselves that such dialogues might play out. Now, Rabbi, we have to talk for a few minutes about the Ten Commandments themselves. I would like very much to hear from you as to really what is going on at this point in the history of the Jewish people. God decides that he is going to give a set of laws to the Bnei Yisrael, and they're very specific laws. 5 are really reflective on how we have to feel and think about God. And then the other 5, as people say, are bein adam lechavero, people to other people. As an example, kivud abiyim, respect for our parents. Very simple question. What's happening here? What are the 10 commandments?
I think that people focus on the 10 commandments, but they forget something extremely important that we are going to read about in the next Parsha, but actually belongs to the days before giving the Torah. And this is making a covenant with the Jewish people. The Torah was not just given a set of laws. There was a relationship here. There was kind of agreement of love, of care to accept it. God, and this is highly, highly important because usually we think, oh, the 10 commandments, it's like 10 laws that you have to obey, and the Jewish people accepted them. And people forget that the 10 commandments came only after a whole ceremony that took place 3 days before. It depends on the commentary, that brought together God and the Jewish people. And they say Naaseh v'nishma. It was like they accepted it. They wanted to form this relationship. Many times as a rabbi under the chuppah, we read the ketubah. The ketubah is a very dry document, actually a legal document, that specify what happened in a case of divorce or death or all the things that you actually don't want to think under the chuppah about. But obviously, the people under the chuppah don't come to get the ketubah. The kala does not come to get the ketubah, and the Khatan is not there about to give her the ketubah, which is a legal document. They are there because hopefully they love each other, because hopefully they are just about to create a lasting relationship forever. But relationship needs framework, needs borders, need to define very, very well what you can do and what you can't. Because otherwise, every relationship will be at a certain point challenged and maybe broke. So we have to look at the Ten Commandments as a framework of the relationship of love that we have between God and us. And many, many people, I think, focus on the do and don'ts instead of seeing it just as a way to maintain that the love story between us and God. So this is the first comment about the Aseret HaDibrot. I think it's the peripheral story. It's a secondary story to the real story that actually we are going to read about in the next Parsha, Parshat Mishpatim. But we read already some of it. Like God did all his miracles and took the Jewish people from Egypt and gave them the miracle of the Red Sea just to give them the Torah and the set of command. That's not the reason. He loves the Jewish people. They have a mission in life and they are capable of doing it. But to do it right, because we are just human beings, we have to know how to behave in different situations. About our parents and about Shabbat, to take a date that we stop everything, and about like the holiness of human life and lo tirtzach, and the holiness of human property, lo tignov, the family, lo tinaf, and so on and so on. That's my take, and I want to highlight this aspect of it.
Rabbi, I once heard a beautiful Devar Torah, and I'm not very good at remembering where I hear them. You have an incredible memory, of which I do not. But the Devar Torah, in simple terms, is about the commandment of Kibbud Avim, honoring your father and mother. And essentially, in a nutshell, it said like this, that one has to honor their mother and father, and there's all kinds of halachot written about how that is supposed to play out. But within that, there's an understanding that there has to be kavod from the parents to the children as well. And within this Devar Torah, the reason stated was that when a child, a little person, is growing up, his or her understanding of God is predicated on their understanding of their parents, of their appreciation of their parents. So if a mother and father is respectful of their child, if a mother and father is loving and caring and good and helps them develop, nurtures them in a way which is local, which is indigenous to their character, the child will love their parents. They will revere them, in fact. But when you ask a child, and who is God? Yes, God is a loving, loving entity. God is someone who loves, his creations. And I thought that was such a beautiful piece, Rabbi, that the kavod between mother and father and children and their parents has to go both ways.
Absolutely, and that's why you find this mitzvah of Kibbud Avayim exactly like the hub, the connection between the first laws of between Adam Lamakom, between a person and God, and a person to another person, because it's really in the middle. It's there is no way that you are going to respect God if you don't respect your parents and don't appreciate what you got from them, and vice versa. You're right. Like the connection has to be both sides. Then you are not going to be a social person too.
Rabbi, as a teacher, as an educator, someone who's involved in chinuch your entire life, and as, thank God, a father of 8 children, and now being a grandfather, when you look at little kids, and I don't know if you've ever had any interaction with little kids about their God, their understanding of God, is that an accurate statement to make, that they see God in the way that they see their parents?
Absolutely. Most kids, remember, they are not intellectually and they don't understand the concept of God. They are little children.
Yeah.
Um, but the model, when they are going to start developing their mind and heart and see the experiences around, I completely agree with you. Their image of God in their heart will mimic, in a way, the relationship they have with their parents. No questions about it.
Do you speak to your grandchildren about God? Does God come up at all?
Yes, actually, I ask people a very simple question, and my grandchildren included. I ask them, like, what happened to you today? Did you see something which maybe God was involved in it? And you know what? If they reflect, they will find something, like a friend that they didn't see for a long time, something that they wanted to happen and happened. You have to train people to see God in your life. And many times we focus too much on the laws. And I think it disturbed you. We had many discussions about this one, because the relationship side in many people and places, and I would say even schools, was replaced with the halacha, with the Shulchan Aruch. Instead of seeing the beauty of relationship, you see it as a set of rules, and it's very hard to accept it. A person by nature want to be free,
Hmm.
and if he feels that actually his relationship with God are of someone that will really guide him. If you read Tehillim and you see God, you never see him as the entity that is about just rules. He's the creator. He helps you in times of stress. He's the one that you refer to when you have to thank for your good fortune. It's about relationship. The laws comes just to regulate it. But if we forget the issue of relationship with God, it's a very sad. It's a very sad religious life.
Rabbi, when we learn the Torah, we can learn it in so many different ways. We can learn it through mysticism, something that you don't do, Ashley. You're not much of a mystic, are you?
I used to be more. I delved into Hasidut, but I have to say today I'm less into it. I appreciate very much, but for some reason I'm more rational than Kabbalistic.
Okay. So within my point, there's many ways of different learning the Torah. One of them is a literary way, and I'd like to share this pasuk with you and just get your take on it, because sometimes psukim, lines within the Torah, they jump out at me in a way where I say, "My God, this is so beautifully written. The essence of it is so divine." And here's an example of it. You yourself have seen what I did to Egypt. This is God to Moshe, and how I carried you on eagle's wings and brought you to myself. Tell me about that pasuk.
This fantastic description of how a nation of thousands upon thousands of people gather, because they did not live in a small area. This, we are talking about like millions of people arriving to one place and start a journey. And how this happened, that people comes together and start a journey. Do you have a more beautiful image of the eagle that, and you can see it sometimes in YouTube, like how eagle can take his offsprings and take them to a journey, like put himself like at the platform as a servant to his little chicks. And I find it again. We talked about relationship, the relationship of the bird with its chicks, taking them out of Mitzrayim, managing them through the way in the desert. Again, these are the most loving relationship that a person might have.
Yeah, and just to expound on that, I think that, as you said, the eagle carries its offsprings on top of it, right? So that when it's flying, that the predators, if an eagle has a predator, cannot be attacked, right?
That's a beautiful insight of Rashi, that the eagle is always he's exposed only to one danger, that the arrows of the hunters is
Yeah,
going to
yeah,
hit, and therefore he put his cheeks on his wings because no other bird might mess up with him, but he still want to make sure that the only danger from the arrows of the human hunter are not going to affect his offsprings. So if it's going to hit him, it's a hafetzure, but not his offsprings.
yeah.
It's a beautiful thing.
It's beautiful. And Rabbi, in conclusion, I also want to share with you a quote from the Caine Mutiny, and it reads as follows. It's a quote from one of the characters about the deep commitment and loyalty expected from sailors towards their ship. And it reads as follows: the ship is the only thing that matters. She's like a lady. She's your lady, and you're her man. And you've got to take care of her. That's what the Navy is all about. The femininity, or the reference of the ship being feminine, is that something you find in the Torah as well?
Listen, even God appears sometimes in the feminine way. We call it Shechina, the Shechina, or when Shabbat is coming and God come to visit our house, is boy chala, boy kala. It's like a more feminine thing that exactly highlight this idea of having the closest relationship possible. Um, I think the whole book raised a very important issue that, especially these days, um, who do we worship? Is it like the high officer? Is it like the idea that this officer is actually on charge? It's not a wonder to me that Herman Wouk got the Pulitzer Prize because he raised an amazing issue. We have today in Israel, some people say, stop being like a beast, like you just worship the prime minister. And some people say, no, it's exactly the opposite. You care only about people and not about the country as a whole. It's a major issue. It's a major issue. Is a nation is first of all like a community that you are like the sheep. You are responsible to its benefit and safety and security, or is it about the people who are running it? It's a very serious question. Very serious question.
I just want to extend the question a little bit, sort of moving away from the feminine aspect of things. We're going to learn later on that Moshe Rabbeinu came down from Sinai and he realized that the Jewish people had created a golden calf, or many of the Jewish people, and he broke the Aseret Divrot. Are things important within the Torah? Are things, material things, do they hold a divine importance within them, or is it more so the holiness imbued within them?
I'm not sure I understand your question. If you can just a little bit elaborate it.
Yeah, so I'm wondering, like here, a sailor to the ship, it's almost their relationship is almost divine the way they speak about it. She is the ultimate importance. And I often wonder within Judaism whether the material things that we learn about, as an example, the Mizbeach, as an example, the tablets themselves, are they themselves holy, or is it what is imbued within them?
If there is holiness, it comes from the relation with human beings connecting with God. Even Beit HaMikdash itself, the Gemara in Masechet Gittin say that when just before the destruction of Beit HaMikdash, it was clear that the Shechina, the presence of God, is moving from one place to another, like declining. Which mean when the Romans destroyed Beit HaMikdash, it was not Beit HaMikdash anymore. It was like walls and a building. There was nothing there anymore. And I believe that the Mizbeach and the Menorah and the Ark, they take their holiness from the relationship that we have with the Torah inside the ark, the relationship that we have with wisdom that is represented by the menorah. If we, the Jewish people, are not keeping all this, I don't think that the vessels themselves hold the sanctity. Now, halachically, of course, they still, we have the Rambam, the famous Rambam, that the place of Beit HaMikdash is still holy. Of course, this is a halachic insight into the holy places. But the holiness comes from something different. It comes from the fact that this is a place that um, Avram brought Yitzchak. This is a place where Noach brought the grateful his gratefulness to God after the flood. So on one hand, we have the laws that institute the holiness of the place, but the source of holiness comes from our relationship with God.
I remember my father telling me many years ago, rest in peace, that there was an article, an advertisement in the newspaper. This was way back in the probably late 40s, early 50s. Someone from St. Catherine's, I believe, who was basically holding a Sefer Torah hostage. He was selling it. And my father went to his Rebbe, who was the late Rabbi Price. And he asked Rabbi Price, he said to him, do we have to redeem this Sefer Torah? There was a lot of money involved. And the rabbi came to a conclusion, and I always hope I'm quoting these things properly. He said, you know what, that's parchment. It's become parchment, right? The Torah is what we put into it. It's the holiness we put into it. So you don't have to redeem it.
Beautiful. You know what? Think about us, human beings. Every human being is a holy person. The moment we cannot practice our relationship with God in our body, namely after 120, we are not alive anymore, the human body become tummy. Everyone, if you are Kohen, you are not allowed to be even around it. If you touch it, you have to go through a certain process. What is the message in it? You are as holy as long as you can practice relationship with God. The moment you cease, there is nothing there anymore.
Sure. I'd like to conclude, Rabbi, with a poem from something you've embraced, apparently, AI. How's that going, by the way? You're taking a course?
I take course with AI. I did something that I'm very happy about. I gave my agent, my AI, a mission to give me a lesson every day between 20 to 30 minutes about AI. So I try to learn Python and things like this, although I'm afraid that the moment I will be able to code certain things, it will be unnecessary because the way the AI is like advancing every day is just amazing. But you will be surprised because this morning I taught my students Talmud, and at the end of the class, one of the students surprised me with a poem written by AI about the Talmud class. I didn't want to disappoint this student and to tell him I actually heard already few like AI poems. I was very excited that they took it because I always say this is the future. You have to learn about it and how to work it properly. Yeah, that's so I'm ready for the second AI poem, Avrum.
Okay, here we go. Just before we go, I just want to tell you that I always get very excited when you ensconce yourself in new things. I love the process of the road that you go on in terms of your development of self, and it's highly inspiring to me. So Yeshikov to you.
Thank you.
In Yitro's counsel, a wisdom profound, a father's guidance, a leader unbound. Moses stood burdened by the weight, judging disputes, sealing each fate. Then Yitro spoke with vision clear, delegate, let others draw near, a lesson of trust in unity's name, in shared responsibility. There's no one to blame. The Torah reveals a leadership light, one who listens, seeks what is right. Jethro's wisdom in Moses' ear gave him the strength to persevere. In the Caine Mutiny, a trial begins with a captain who spirals. He loses winds, a ship in chaos, the crew in fright. Mutiny brews beneath the moonlight. Lieutenant Queeg, a man of brittle mind, leads with fear, his actions blind. The crew caught in a moral bind seek rebellion when their leader's unkind. In both tales, power misused, a leader lost, a people abused. Moses listens, his way is clear, while Queeg's pride causes all to fear. Yitro's wisdom, a calm decree to bring peace to set men free. But in the Caine's disarrayed sea, no counsel found, no clarity. Yitro's portion, a path of trust, in human frailty, a call to adjust. The Caine's tale, a ship adrift, shows the cost when power shifts. The Torah teaches in times of stress, seek counsel, share, and do not suppress. The Caine Mutiny warns us too of how unchecked authority will undo. One speaks of balance of peace to gain, the other of mutiny, loss, and pain. In both, a lesson to heed that wisdom and balance are what we need. Rabbi, in conclusion, very often we do a prayer for the hostages, but I would like to ask you instead, what are your thoughts that you can share with us about the hostages, about the hostage situation, about where Israel is at today? Perhaps you can give us some positive insight into that.
Positive insight, I would say, I think the most important one is how every Jew feels the pain. And I think that every Jew would love to see them back. In light of what you talked before, even the people who are raising concerns about the deal, it's very hard to say the word deal when you talk about like life of human beings. So I simply, out of lack of words, I would say deal just because like people call it deal, but it's not a deal. It's a pidyon shvuim. It's a very different level of deal, so to speak. There is a concern. What is going to happen in the future? And the question is, what about the country, about the people, about the community? How much our decisions today make a difference for the community tomorrow? I just want to raise it as a question, not comment, not criticism in any way or shape. The deal of Shalit was a very important one. It's no question saved the life of Shalit. But I think that it will be a mistake not to see that the deal with Shalit conceived what happened in October 7th. And I think you asked me about leadership and about God. I don't want to be in the shoes of Netanyahu or anyone else who get the decision. I think we are in a very sensitive point that every decision, no matter what, this side or this side, is going to make a huge difference for the future, or to the people who are hostages now, or to the people who don't know that tomorrow they might be the target of these barbarians. So, on one hand, when I see the pictures of the people are coming, I'm so happy. But at the same time, I must say, like thinking that the barbarians in hundreds and thousands are going back, and they already promised that they will fight against Israel, make me very sad and very concerned. So I don't know how to accommodate the two feelings of happiness on one hand for the people who are coming, and the concern for the people, and who knows who are these people that might pay for this, as I say, deal. Maybe you can give me a good advice how to balance the two.
No, I think what you're saying is very similar to my feelings. And I've asked many, many people how they feel about this situation. I interviewed David Horowitz, who is the founding editor of the Times of Israel, a couple of days ago. And I asked him this exact question, and his response was very, very similar. It was very, very similar. It's an impossible situation, you know, possible situation. How does one respond to seeing our people, our brothers, come out of out of the tunnels of Gaza a few days ago, emaciated as if they had come out of Auschwitz? And I have to tell you something as a human being, honestly, Rabbi, I'm being very honest with you. I want to go there and I want to kill these people. I'm so angry as to what they've done to us. So I don't know that I can add very much to what you're saying. What I would say is, and I hear this from a lot of rabbis and a lot of people whom I respect greatly. I'm very much of an activist. I like to get out there and do what I can on a practical nature in terms of leadership, or what I define as leadership. Be strong, be vocal, get out there and fight our enemies and do it with verve. But what I hear from a lot of rabbis and very spiritual people, including yourself, is be a very good Jew, right? Up your level of chesed, you're up your level of kindness, and you're giving to others. We're learning about the Aseret Dibrot this week, the 10 Commandments, and it talks about respect for your mother and father. Sit down with yourself and have a meeting and ask yourself, oh, this is a difficult time. Your parents are older, let's say. What can I do in order to fulfill this mitzvah in a stronger and a better way? And I hear from many rabbis, Rabbi Koropkin at the Bayit Synagogue, at a recent conference on the Rambam at his synagogue, which I asked the question, how does one get out there and do a better job in terms of protecting our people? And his response was very much, and he is an activist, his response was very much is up your Judaism, be a better Jew. And I think that's highly significant.
I think we need another podcast about this one. I'm not saying that I disagree, but I'm concerned about these kind of answers, to be honest with you. It's what expected rabbis to say, obviously. Every opportunity, if it's a good time, up your Jewishness. If it's bad time, up your Jewishness. But I think this is the easy way to go, right? Because always it's good to be a better Jew, no questions about it. But there are times that you have to be Nachshon ben Aminadav. You have to jump into the water.
Mm-hmm.
You have to do something which might be not expected. And I feel that we live in times like this. I'm too old to go and to do something about it, but I feel that when the rabbis say just be a better Jew, of course they're right. It's good for every time, every year, every age, day or night. It's always good. But I feel that we live in historic times. When I say in the morning, Shelo asani isha, shelo asani goy, shelo asani aved, shelo asani rosh memshala. Like, I'm very happy that I'm not the prime minister, but I do feel that very difficult decision has to be made, and they can be made only if it's clear to us what we stand for. My biggest problem is not only with the goyim. I'm not sure that we know with the same conviction of the people who, let's say, went out of the Holocaust and they knew we have to rebuild, we have to go to Israel or to rebuild the future of our families in America, whatever it is. But there was a conviction which I don't see so much today. I think that is beyond what we say, Am Yisrael Chai. I don't think that all of us agree upon the same goals. And this is something of concern to me.
Your point is very, very well taken. And I think there's nuances to the statements of the rabbis. The way I take it, Rabbi, and we will conclude with this, is that, there's energy in the world. Some of it is very, very evil and bad. And then there's the other energy, which is very good and which is very caring and which is very loving. There's a cartoon that my sister Naomi, God bless her soul, it's her yortzeit on Wednesday night. I remember she used to quote Peanuts, Charlie Brown a lot. Were you a Charlie Brown fan?
Not me, but one of my children is a big fan.
Yeah, it's great stuff. Charles Schultz. And Lucy said, Charlie Brown was saying that he was very sad and that he was having a hard time of things. And Lucy said, listen, inside of you, she said, there's sadness and there's happiness. What you need to do is you need to lean over this way a little bit. and let the happiness pour into the sadness. Is that the way it would go? And to enhance the happiness within you. My point is with all the evil and the bad in the world and all the evil and the bad happening to us, that I believe very strongly that the more goodness that we do, okay, the conscious decision that we make to do better acts of kindness and to go out of our way to be a finer, stronger, good person, I believe that has an effect on the bad and the evil energy in the world.
I
That's
completely
my
agree
point.
with you, and I'll give you one simple example. After the Holocaust, there were people who devoted their life to hunt Nazis
Yes.
and to bring them to justice or to kill them at certain times. And at the same time, there were people who were not hunting the Nazis. They worked in the field, they built the houses, they built the country, they defended the country. And when you look backwards, sometimes they say, "Why I would love to be like a Nazi hunter if I would live in these times." But I recognize today that people like my father-in-law, not hunting Nazis, but building a moshav in Israel, contributed much more to the Jewish world because, as you say, like acts of kindness, acts of building at the long run, they endure and stays much longer than the acts of revenge, and which come from a good place and anger.
Rabbi, I want to thank you very much for this chavrusa of ours and the chavrusa that we put out to the Jewish people and the non-Jewish world as well. It was fascinating as always. You did an outstanding job, And what I like very much about our chavrusa here is that it's very spontaneous in nature. One of my nieces mentioned me. Goes, maybe sometimes you should tell the rabbi the questions beforehand because I see him thinking sometimes, and I'm not sure if he's going to respond with a good answer, what have you. I said, no. That's the beauty of what we're doing here, right? It's not knowing, right, and having to come up with an appropriate answer and drawing upon that database of information, that vast database of information that you have in your head. So I wish you yishakach for
I
that.
always sometimes nervous about questions that like come from the left field. I must say that, but I completely appreciate it actually because you know what the answer in this situation it's like the bring the truth from your kishkes. This is like what you
Yes.
really.
Yes. Are you familiar with stand-up mic where comedians will go up and they'll just spontaneously do an act, or musicians? You're a stand-up rabbi.
I never thought about it this way.
No, you're very good. You're very, very good. Just really responding from the information that you know. So, ladies and gentlemen, we want to thank you very much for being with us. We wish you a good week. And as we say, I'm Yisrael Chai. Be proud to be a Jew. Get out there and be active in the way that works for you. Use your talents, use your gifts to make our people a stronger people, a better people, and this earth, this planet, which we share, to make it a better place. So until we are together again next week, God willing, have a beautiful, beautiful week, a safe week, a peaceful week, and the Jewish people should be strong, and things should always, always get better for us. Thank you so
Amen.
much. Amen.